Today's stream is on how to stop people pleasing. So, for those of you who aren't familiar, a people pleaser is a person who has an emotional need to please others, often at the expense of his or her own needs or desires. Um, and a thing that's really important for us to remember is that being nice isn't about being powerless or bullied. It's understanding that you don't have to feel okay with everything. You're allowed to set boundaries. You are allowed to say no. I want to thank you guys so much for coming today. I really hope that you get a lot out of this stream. I've actually gotten a lot uh, in my own life from researching for this one. Louis the Claw says, "Hi, Shorty Pop." Hey, Louis the Claw, how are you doing today? And how have things been? I uh, I am really excited about the recent development of Shorty Pop Shorts. It's going to be cool to start streaming twice a week and having special guests on. We'll see where that leads. Louis the Claw says, "I'm good. Been busy these days. How are you?" Well, I'm glad to hear that you're good, and I hope that by being busy these days, it's busy in a good way and not, overwhelming or anything. Um, so, is it busy in a good way or a meh way? Um, I've been busy too. I've been working on the stream a lot and feeling good about it. And I'm actually curious. I know that I just asked you like a bunch of questions already, but in what ways do you find yourself exhausting your time or exhausting yourself, emotionally or financially or otherwise for another person? Um, Liberace says hello with a little smiley face. Hey, Liberace, I'm really glad that you guys could make it today. How are you doing? Um, Look at the Claw says, meh, but almost to the end of a heavy work period. Okay. Well, I'm glad that you are seeing the light at the end of that tunnel. And it sounds like you're being very persistent in getting through it. Uh, and, props to you. Yeah. So, I just slapped the mic a little bit. Excuse me. Um, I I think it is easier said than done when it comes to people pleasing, and maybe this is, at your workplace too, if you're talking about going through a heavy work period and having to deal a lot with that, and if there's a lot of pressure there, um, maybe I don't know if you felt the need to push yourself past your comfort level with work or to please your boss or to please your coworkers. But I'm really interested to hear your perspective on that. And um, just in general, I'm happy to catch up with you guys and see how you've been. And I am really excited to dive deep into this topic because I think a lot of us struggle with people pleasing. Um, V Falcon says, "Ooh, good topic." Yeah, I'm really glad that you feel that way. I think if I've learned one thing from this, it's that the phrase give until it hurts is bullshit. I've had strangers, come up to me at a gas station and give me a sob story, and then as soon as I give them the $2 they ask for, they say, "Oh, $5, right?" And then it's like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna seem like a dick if I say no to giving $3 more." But now I'm at a point where it's like, no, I can ignore these people. I don't have to let them engage with me if they're a stranger. I don't have to let them take advantage of me. And you can say no to friends if you don't have the energy to do something. So we're gonna talk about, how do I know I'm being taken advantage of? Why does this happen to me? And how do I stop it? Louis the Claw says, I've had a lot of being really tired lately. And like, I legitimately think, quote, these people aren't the reason I'm feeling grouchy, but I do a lot of forcing a smile at times when it's a bit hard. I think that takes a lot of maturity to recognize when personal exhaustion isn't necessarily somebody's fault, and yet still be able to not put that frustration on another person. But hopefully, when you're, forcing that smile, you don't. I don't know if you feel compelled to do that with people that you should be able to be vulnerable with, like your friends, or if that's contained mostly to work. Um, but I think that that is a form of people pleasing. Um, and that's hard to navigate in a professional setting because there is this standard. Oh my goodness, I'm blowing up. Shush, shush, shush. There is this standard to be this perfect version of yourself, be a robot, don't show emotion in the office. Um, so I think working from home, I'm curious if you feel like that helps you to be able to not have to be under a microscope, being in a cubicle, um, or how that's helped or affected it. Louis the Claw says, yeah, I think so too. And I think I do it with my friends too. I'm sure my roommates know I'm my exhausted for a smile. Um, and I think that's unfortunate that there's that pressure to do that with your friends. And I definitely understand that. I think, and let me know if you guys relate to this, but this need to, I guess, this fear of putting our emotional energy on another person, that's going to drive them away, or wanting to maybe seem put together. Um, like, what part of that do you think uh, that derives from? Louis the Claw says, I think work from home helps. I've reached a point where I've taken it for granted a little. Yes, I have that fear, all of the above. Okay. We're going to dive deeper into people pleasing tendencies and what the root of that is. And I think it's really going to surprise you where that comes from because it really shocked me. Um, Let me look through I'm just going to skim through my notes a second. Um, I I wrote here as a general rule, don't talk to strangers who approach you unless it's a hot girl or a very effeminate gay man. That is a rule I started living by as far as uh, putting myself in a situation where I engage with somebody who might not have my best interest at heart. But if it's a hot girl, she's probably complimenting me, and that is fine. um, but don't initiate, don't reciprocate. That seems easy enough to do when it comes to strangers, maybe. But what about when it has to do with friends? Do you exhaust yourself for your friends? Do you lend money to a friend? Do you give rides to your friends where they treat you like a taxi? I've heard that from certain friends. What kind of obligations have you set up for yourself where you find yourself later being like, why the fuck did I agree to this? Or almost getting frustrated with that friend because of a commitment that you agreed to that you immediately regretted or didn't actually want to do. Liberace says, I offer way too many rides for people. I remember us talking about that before, and I really appreciated the conversation we had earlier today about people pleasing. And I remember you having said that you have a desire to people please because you want people to like you. Um, Sometimes it's not just our friends are pressuring us into doing something. Sometimes it's just, oh, I don't want to let this person down. I want them to like me. And that can derive from maybe we felt like we weren't liked very much in the past. And so we overextend ourselves to keep these friendships or to keep people liking us because we're afraid. Um, Louis the Claw says, Liberace says that's a big part of it. Louis the Claw says, yeah, I really feel that way. Um, Louis the Claw, and you know, not just you guys, but anybody watching, I really want us to take some time to self-reflect during this stream and identify what happened in the past that made us feel like we weren't loved, and in what ways was that not so true, the way that we're painting it? How did we actually, um, what are ways that we were loved in the past that maybe we're not remembering it right? Or what are ways that we're loved now that we don't have to push ourselves past our boundaries for other people? Uh, Louis the Claw says, I count myself lucky that I don't see my friends taking advantage of me. Almost always, people are looking out for me. I'd say my overextending is self-initiated. Yeah, I remember us having talked about this where if I had a difficulty with something, maybe I was like, "Oh, you know, I'm having trouble setting this up." Um, you you know, you're a very generous person, so I would notice you being like, "Oh, I could help you with this," even though I hadn't said, "Oh, I need help." And I was like, "Hey, you know, you don't have to offer to help me with something if I haven't asked for help. You know, if I need help with something, I'll ask you, and if you say no, that's okay. But you don't have to, like, that. What you're saying about the self-initiated thing, um, that doesn't make you any less of a friend for not offering to help if you're not asked to. Um, I get that need where if somebody comes to you about a problem, like our brains are calculators designed to be like, oh, I want to solve this problem. But whenever it requires emotional energy of you to like go out and do something and do all this stuff rather than just like, oh, have you tried plugging it in, unplugging it and plugging it back in? You know, you don't need to extend yourself past what you're comfortable with. And it's unfortunate we put ourselves in these situations. Um, I am real quick going to post my lovely little sources in the chat, as always, to give credit where credit is due. Boop and boop. Um, so we're gonna dive first into when am I being pushed too far, and I'd really love to hear your guys's experiences on when you noticed that you were being pushed too far. Um, you know, being nice doesn't mean you're obliged to do something unhappily. Do you, and I want to know from you guys, do you find yourself complaining afterwards about people taking advantage? You know, what have you regretted doing in the past as far as making yourself do things for other people? Um, you know, I remember years ago I lent money to an ex because I genuinely wanted to, but this person got used to it. And that is a warning sign when somebody makes you feel like it's never enough what you're giving them. You know, oh, but you promised, or oh, but I need it. You're supposed to help me. You're not being a true friend. Like, that's, it's not always intentional manipulation, but it is manipulative language. If somebody says, but you promise this, you're allowed to change your mind. It can be frustrating for the other person, sure. Um, but you're allowed to change your mind if you later are like, you know what, I actually can't afford to help you out, or I can't help you out today because I am exhausted, I didn't get any sleep, or whatever. Um, Whenever we find ourselves getting angry at the person afterwards, uh, because of something that we didn't necessarily have to do, it turns into passive aggression. We do things for people we don't actually want to do, and we feel taken advantage of. But it's our inability to say no and our communication skills. Um, V Falcon says, "Yeah, it's hard to drop the urge to extend a helping hand too much. It's a fine balance." Yeah, it and I'm curious as far as the need to people please goes and where that derives from. I know Liberace and Louis the Claw had felt this way of not feeling that appreciation at some point in their life, and so they go out of their way to do nice things for people because they want that admiration, they want that appreciation, they want people to like them. V Falcon, do you feel the same way? I know I've definitely been through that, where I felt like I wasn't liked for a lot of my life. Like I couldn't make friends. And if you're comfortable sharing, do you relate to that? And in what ways do you think that has influenced the way that you feel the need to put yourself out there to a point where it exhausts you or frustrates you? Liberace says, right? Like, I'll hear someone needs something and my mind goes to, I can fix it. Yeah, and that's not your fault. That doesn't make you a bad person. That just makes you human. Um, but you also deserve the autonomy to say no when you just can't. Um, Liberace says, yes, I definitely extend a hand as a way to hopefully get people to like me. Uh, Louis the Claw says, I relate, Liberace. And V Falcon says, yeah, that was how I felt for a long time. It took a long time to make good friends, so it felt like a privilege to have people to help out. I really like that. That idea of feeling good to have people in your life who really do appreciate you. And sometimes it's easy to overlook that when we're hurting. It's easy to lose trust for people when we're in pain. Um, Louis the Claw says a privilege. That's exactly the feeling. Yeah. Um, Definitely. I have a friend who lends money left and right to people and is like, oh, this person didn't pay me back, but I'm just going to keep giving them money. And I was like, bro, no, you don't have to do that. It's okay. Save up some money for yourself. Like, that doesn't make you a bad person. Actually, real quick, just before the stream, I was looking up common phrases that are cut off, that have a different meaning than we expect. And this money is the root of all evil is not what we think it means. It's the love for money is the root of all evil. So wanting to have a savings for yourself, wanting to have a safety net doesn't make you bad. If you're greedy and you're, screwing over other people, or you're not satisfied in certain ways whenever you're already meeting your needs, that can lead you down a bad path. But being like, I have a good savings, but I don't need to give this friend money. That's okay. Um, Louis the Claw says, oh, the exact opposite. There's a lonely sense of not being useful. V Falcon says, yeah, and I know how to help my friends. Uh, I know how, wow, I'm just reading things really poorly today. Yeah, and I know how helpful my friends have been to me, so I want to return the favor. Yeah, I felt like there was a point in my life where I became very entitled because I started to have friends that cared about me and I exhausted them because I thought, well, my needs come first. My needs come first. And I wasn't there for them um in the ways I should have. And I didn't spread out my needs among other people. It was just, I'm going to pile all this on one person. So whenever I got to a point where I was able to be more giving and more caring and more selfless, I think that there were ways I pushed that too much to the extreme on the other side. Um, and I'm curious if you guys relate to that, where there was a period where you were feeling more entitled to people's emotional energy or whatever it could be because you felt like you were cheated out of it at one point. And if there was a sliding scale of what's part of the spectrum of that you were on. Liberace says, I had a coworker that I'd lend money to once in a while, but she always paid me back immediately, and she helped me out too plenty of times. Those people are wonderful, and I don't feel taken advantage of. But then there's some people that will take the handout and keep coming back for more. My general rule for that at this point in my life is maybe I'll lend somebody a small amount of money, like $20 or whatever. And if they pay me back in a timely manner, it's like, okay, you have shown me that you can be trusted to pay me this amount back. And if you come to me again and you need, help with something, I'll be willing to help a little bit more. But if a friend ever doesn't pay me back, I'm not going to fight with somebody over fucking $20 or be like, oh, call them like a fucking debt collector. It's just like, all right, well, you've lost my trust in this department, and I'm not gonna let that affect my friendship with you, but I just know that this is not a department that I'm comfortable extending myself anymore. And I'm wondering how you feel about that, Liberace, as far as setting a comfortable boundary for yourself. Do you feel like that would be an appropriate situation or appropriate solution to your situation? It's good. Liberace says it's good to set those boundaries. Definitely. And boundaries are different for every person. Maybe what works for me doesn't work for you. And that's okay. Um, you know, uh, if you offer to pay for meals all the time and they never offer to pay, you can choose to split the bill next. You don't have to say, hey, you have to pay this time because I covered you last time, because that's setting up an expectation that because I did something new, nice for you, you have to do something nice for me. You can just be like, I just won't offer it this time. We'll just split it. I'll pay for my food, you pay for your food, whatever. Um, Liberace says, I think that's really smart. Well, I'm glad, and I hope that you guys can value yourself and love yourself enough to stick to those boundaries. Because setting the boundaries is not as big of a part of it as keeping those boundaries. Um, and I'm interested to hear from the rest of you guys how you feel about something like that being a solution. If you're somebody who extends yourself financially, or what other ways might you extrapolate that strategy in other parts of your life where you find yourself over exhausting yourself. um you know uh V Falcon says, definitely, Liberace, boundaries are the most important part about this. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. If you want someone to like you, which is where a lot of this derives from, rather than exerting yourself in ways that exceed your comfort level, focus on being genuine and enjoying the time you have with that person. When you allow yourself to gain the acceptance of others by being yourself within your own boundaries, your own comfort level, and your wants and needs, there's less pressure to buy their acceptance and their love. It takes practice. Like if somebody on the street asks you for something, you can choose to ignore them. But we think that we have no choice but to be quiet. And we're going to go through how to set those boundaries. We're going to go through little steps that we could take, and long-term goals that we could set for ourselves to protect ourselves and show ourselves the love that we put too much on other people. Liberace says, it's hard to say no sometimes. I think a lot of us want to immediately say yes to everything. So, like you said, we got to get used to the idea that saying no is perfectly fine. You're definitely right, Liberace. You can communicate without negativity. You can nicely disagree. People will only take advantage of you if you let them. Um, uh, you know, I I realized there were times where I was selfish. I helped out a friend, I let her live here, and I did it more for myself because I wanted somebody to help around the house. And when she didn't meet those expectations after I did the nice quote unquote thing, I got angry. Um, you know, I made the mistake of doing something nice for somebody for myself and not for them. Um, so, after hearing these examples, are there times looking back where you believe you could have done something different to prevent a negative outcome as far as being a people pleaser? Do. Boop. Yeah, this part of note taking is making sound effects when I highlight things. um, V Falcon says, I suppose being okay with pissing people off is important too. Um, Honestly, if people get mad at you for setting boundaries, they're not real friends. Um, it's normal for people to get frustrated sometimes, but you know, it's on them to communicate that to you in a respectful manner. It's okay to be like, I was really, looking forward to you coming today to help out, but I get the situation you're in, and I'm not going to put that on you. Versus just being like, fuck you, you didn't help me. There's a difference in just being like, I feel some kind of way about this, but it's not your fault. That's how a true friend should treat you if you aren't able to do something. If, like, you promised or whatever, you're allowed to change your mind. Liberace says, yeah, like, if they get mad, it's not your fault, and you can't always solve someone else's problems. Louis the Claw says, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, you can't always solve somebody else's problems. There's a saying, not my monkeys, not my circus. And sometimes it's hard for us to say that to ourselves. I've definitely made other people's problems my problems, where I'm like, oh, this person has this problem. How do I help them? And it's like, Danny, you got your own problems. Maybe just focus on yourself. Like, if they need time to figure their stuff out, you can't always be the one to be like, oh, this is the answer, because maybe it's not always your place. But we will also get into how can you say tough news to a friend who needs to hear it if that is your place, which is something that's helped me a lot lately. V Falcon says, or being optimistic. Maybe they'll come around even if they didn't like your decision at first. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good way to look at it. I think that's something I've struggled with, is giving people the benefit of the doubt sometimes, or seeing them in good faith. Sometimes I'm just like, no, they're going to be mad at me if I bring this up. And I had a few conversations with friends today where I'm like, what if they're mad at me if I say this thing? And then I talked to them and they were like, oh, yeah, okay. And it was totally fine. And I felt so silly for assuming that somebody would get mad at me, or frustrated, or think, they feel some type of way about me being open about my feelings about something. And I want you guys to remember, if you do a nice thing for a friend, that's dandy. But, if you notice that friend making you feel like it wasn't enough, or pushing you to do more to see what else they can get out of you, that's not okay. It's okay to set boundaries for how you help someone. Like, if a friend needs money, sometimes I'll commission them. Like, hey, you're good at this, you're good at art, or you're good at writing. If you write me a short story, or if you want to take a commission and do a drawing for me, I'll help you out. But it's like, I'm giving them an opportunity by supporting their business to give them money because I want to, and I like their art, or I like what they do, and I want to support them. But I'm not just giving handouts and feeling like I'm being taken advantage of. So that's another way that I personally have found a way to make a boundary to help out friends who are in need without overexerting myself. I'm wondering what you guys think of that. Uh, when they ask you at a point, when they don't need it or they want it, then that's, you know, do they help you when you need help? That's something also to ask yourself. You don't necessarily have to expect people to do the same things for you that you do for them. But if you're always extending yourself to somebody and you find that, you feel hurt or underappreciated, that feeling is still valid as long as you're not doing things for that person for selfish reasons because you expect those things. Does that make sense? Um, real OG Big T. Hi, how are you doing? It's good to see you in the chat. How have you been? And what do you think of today's topic? Have you found yourself being a people pleaser, or do you find yourself being somebody who is comfortably able to set boundaries and be like, no, I'm not going to do that? I'm really excited to hear your thoughts on it. If something feels like it's not a good idea, say no. If somebody says, I need an answer right now, then the answer is no, because they're not respecting the fact that you said maybe or give me some time. You don't owe something to somebody that demands something of you or demands an answer before you have time to really think about it, because that's them ignoring your consent, whether they mean it manipulatively or not. That's just how it is. Real OG Big T says, great. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Liberace says, I like the idea of commissioning friends because that way you're not necessarily overextending yourself. You're also helping them out. Right. And you're getting something too, because if you like their artwork, then you're getting cool artwork or whatever it is that you're commissioning them for. I know somebody who would pay somebody who needed money to clean their house because they didn't have the energy to clean their house, and they got to help somebody out. Real OG Big T says, I guess it depends on the situation and the person. Close friends, I try to be there for them. Okay. And do you ever find yourself saying yes to these close friends in times where you later regret it, or you're like, I overextended myself to this person? Do you get that feeling, or do you think you're at a point now where you're more comfortable saying no to friends if you're just not able to? Oh, for sure, I always try to support my friends' businesses. Yeah, I think that's good. Like, if you're able to, I think that's great that you do that. There's nothing wrong with helping people when you actually want to help them. And how, for those of you who do look at yourselves as people pleasers, how do you feel about yourself for having gone so far out of your way for somebody who wasn't worth it or didn't appreciate it? And ask yourself, why did you do it? Are you helping them to make yourself feel good? I felt foolish for trusting a friend who everyone told me not to trust. I confided a lot in her and she used it against me. And I realized I was doing it for myself because I still wanted her to like me. Actually, Liberace, I remember us being in a situation where I watched you take out your wallet as we were walking together and give it to a homeless person. And I actually felt really scared for you, because when you put yourself in that situation, you're leaving yourself vulnerable. Taking out your wallet in public, or to a homeless person who could have a knife or could hurt you, like you could get mugged. And I see that loving, caring side of you who wants to help everybody. But I worry about you because I want you to be able to protect yourself and not leave yourself vulnerable to people who don't have the best interests in you at heart. Or if their interests are ambiguous because you don't know them. So I'm curious, how do you feel about that? Liberace says, right, I remember that. I gotta be more aware of that. Yeah, and I just say that out of concern. That's not a criticism of you. It's just, I care about you. And I think, if we dive deeper now into why is it me? Why am I the one being the people pleaser? Why am I the one that people are taking advantage of? For me personally, growing up, there were a lot of ways where I felt like my classmates didn't like me, or that my friends didn't like me, or that my teachers didn't like me, or certain family members, if they liked me or not, you know? And this goes into the self exploration of this topic, you know? Does your desire to be liked cost you your needs? And I know we talked a little bit about doing things to people please. How far does that go? Did you grow up in a household where you were the one that you know your parents depended on to make them happy? Were you the peacekeeper in the household growing up? Did you have too big of responsibilities when you were a kid? Like, did your parents go to you for emotional energy and not take proper care of you, like feeding you? Um, in the past, sure. OG Big T. Oh, I missed a couple. Louis the Claw says, I guess the way overextending myself comes back to me in a painful way is if I see them being judgmental towards me if I've done a lot towards them. I guess the trade I'm making in my head is service for respect, which isn't good, just a self exploration. Um, I'm curious, in what ways have you found somebody being judgmental towards you after you've done a lot for them? I just want to make sure I understand a little bit better about that. Um, if you're comfortable talking about it. Liberace says, I think in the back of my mind, I want to trust people. I don't want to think every stranger is dangerous, but you're absolutely right. Um, I think there's healthy aspects of that and unhealthy aspects of that, because I've found myself neglecting to trust people lately, because of some personal stuff I've gone through, and I'm working on that. But that applies more to trusting the people in my life who have proven that they're somebody I should trust and I shouldn't have my doubts about, versus strangers. I understand that desire to want to help everybody, because I've been there. You know, I've been that person that, you know, some lady comes up to me and says, I'm a homeless vet and I have this domestic abuse and I have this. And then I'm like, sure, you can get in my car and I'll give you a ride. And I remember I became more assertive where I'm like, you have to put a mask on if you're going to get in here. And she was on the phone and being like, no, 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 no. And it's like, look, I know that you're talking to your friend right now, but I'm the one doing you a favor. So you could either put on a mask or get out until you put a mask on. And then she was like, you know what? Actually, I don't need a ride. And it's like, I think you do want to ride, but you're just not going to do it now because you think that you realize that I'm not going to be pushed around. And that's why she exited the situation. Because I had somebody who was like, oh, do you have the time? Oh, yes, it's this. And then it's like, I mean, because I didn't know better at the time. Oh, here's the time. Oh, can I get in your car? Sure. Oh, can you drive me a little farther than I initially said? Sure. Can I have some money? I actually really don't have any except for some quarters. And then she like threw the quarters at me and yelled at my face and stormed out. And it's like, oh, this is why I shouldn't trust strangers. But if I have a friend that's been there for me, you know, it's like I should trust that, you know, I okay, this person has earned my trust. They haven't done something to break it. Um, that's hard to navigate. Um, Real OG Big T says, in the past, sure, but I'm not really approached for help from people. Sometimes if a friend is doing a project and they need help, of course I'll help in situations like that. And he says, for sure, Liberace, I know what you mean. I've been in many situations in my life where I've been very generous and people have treated me like I should do more for them. Um, Real OG Big T, since you've been through that as well, where do you feel that that comes from? Um, that desire to keep giving until it hurts, or what did you notice about those people that you put your trust in versus the people that you decide to trust now? How do you find that boundary for yourself? Because it sounds like you've gotten to a point where you are better at setting those boundaries. Um, so I'm interested in hearing your journey about that. Louis the Claw says, it's hard to explain, but snarky comments from people I trust can hit me the wrong way if I consider them in my trust slash help circle. Yeah, I notice myself internalizing things that people say, even if they don't mean it in a jerk way, um, and holding on to that. And I have to remind myself, this person didn't mean it in this way, and or or maybe somebody did mean it in that way, and it is time to put your guard up, depending on how well you know that person or how much trust they've built up. Real OG Big T says, oops, my last comment was directed at Louis. Oh, okay. Louis the Claw says, oh yeah, absolutely. Real OG Big T says, well, it just comes naturally as I age. Yeah, I think, that doesn't come for everybody. There's people who, even as they get older, they still do that. My friend's mom lends money to people or buys things for people, but she'll always hold it over their head and be like, well, I did this for you, so you should do this for me. And it's like, I get that you're trying to be generous, but you're doing it for the wrong reasons. You're trying to buy their love. And in that way, she just ends up hurting herself and the people around her. Liberace says, I think I need to ask myself, would this person do this for me if the roles were reversed? But I offer rides and money before I offer rides and money because I look back and think, yeah, I don't think they would. Yeah, I think as a general rule of thumb, that advice your parents told you when you were 4 or 5 of don't talk to strangers, it sounds silly, but I've realized it still holds up to this day. Even as an adult, don't talk to strangers, don't trust strangers. That doesn't mean that you have to have this hard shell and not trust anybody. It's just trust the people in your life that have showed you that they're worthy of trust. You don't have to blindly give trust to people because that's not fair to you. You're just setting yourself up for hurting yourself. And we'll dive into how to stop worrying what other people think of you. Because that's where a lot of this comes from. Real OG Big T says, I don't do money for the most part, but deeds instead, Yeah, I think that's good too, because I think money is something people get very used to, because money is a need. It is something that everybody needs, but it's also easy to just take it for granted. Whereas kind deeds, I think there's more of a visual aspect to it of like, okay, I could see this person doing it. It's not just a number in their bank account. It's seeing you go out of your way to do something. They don't see you go through the effort of making that money, but they see you go through the effort of doing that thing. And I think that makes it a little bit more concrete for that person. Which is why supporting somebody's business makes it a little bit more concrete for them too, because as they're going through the process of doing that service, they're remembering, oh, I get to do this thing because this person gave me this opportunity, rather than just here's money. What do you guys think of that? Real OG Big T. Louis the Claw says, oh man, maybe I'm overly optimistic, but I feel like most of my friends would do me a favor, or at least I have some friend that would be comfortable with any category of favor. Like maybe someone isn't comfortable offering me a ride, but they'd be comfortable house sitting. Yeah, I think there's friends that I trust in different ways. Like, okay, maybe I wouldn't trust this person to watch my ferrets because they haven't, maybe they no call no showed before. Okay, now I just know not to trust them with that aspect. But maybe they're really reliable in other ways. Like if I come to them about something, I know that they're going to be there for me. it depends. You know, we talked in the last stream about boxes that we need filled. We can't expect one person to fill every box of our needs. And that's okay. Reality Big T says, of course it holds up. That's why Dio taught us. And then the horns, or as my my high school math teacher used to call it, rock star fingers. Don't talk to strangers. Fucking right, man. Fucking right. Actually, oh my god, I feel like the most fucking biggest poser ever because I don't remember when Dio said that. Please tell me the song that he says that, because I'm gonna fucking look that shit up afterwards and probably do some lame air guitar in my living room to it where nobody can see. V Falcon says, I feel this. Money feels icky and deeds are specific for the person. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. When there's something more concrete for somebody to see, I think it does make it easier for that person to see the effort you're putting in. You know, we wonder to this root that this stems from. We wonder to ourselves if somebody likes us. You know, we gravitate towards people who make us feel good. But if we feel like we can't get any better friends, we stick with the people who hurt us. I mean, how many times in your life, like when have you recalled looking back and being like, wow, I stuck with these friends who were shitty to me because I felt like I couldn't do any better? I remember hanging out with a family member who was, you know, complaining to me about friends and being like, oh, this person does this and it pisses me off and this person does this. And I was like, do you find yourself sticking around these friends because you feel like you can't do any better? And she didn't even have to think about it. She was just like, yes. And that really made me sad to hear that. We put the questions in our heads, you know. Yes, do they like me? Yes, okay, I'll pursue this. Or no, I'll withdraw to avoid getting hurt. You know, do you find yourself spending more times with friends that you enjoy being with, or do you find yourself worrying that you won't get any better of a support group? You know, I used to hang out with heroin addicts or pill addicts or dangerous, violent people or people who stole from me, people who used me for weed or rides because I felt like I didn't have any other friends and people wouldn't like me otherwise. And now, what you guys were saying before about feeling privileged to have people in your corner who really do love and appreciate you, it is something to cherish. V Falcon says, yeah, that was high school for me. I didn't even know what better friends were like back then. So whenever those people didn't treat you well, was that them using you in ways that you weren't comfortable with? Or was that also just like mistreating you, like maybe ragging on you or whatever in ways that you were like, this doesn't actually feel good? I'm curious to hear like more about that if you're comfortable sharing. Liberace says it's easier to stick with people you already have than make a new circle of friends. It's hard to take the first step outside of those people. Yeah, I remember us having that conversation of a cost versus sum in relationships because you had been friends with somebody for a really long time who didn't treat you well, but you felt like, you know, I've been friends with this person for so many years, it feels wrong to separate from them. And, you know, at the end of the day, it was healthier for you and better for you to walk away from that, even though it was really hard. And it takes a lot of strength to do something like that. To combat this worry of people, of needing people to like you, you know, ask yourself, what do you think of these friends back? Like, these friends that you keep trying to help, what are your feelings towards them? These people that you want them to love you and you want them to respect you and you want them to care for you and do all these things for them. What do you actually think of that person? I don't think we ask ourselves that as much, you know? Like, our moods change. Sometimes we see more positives in a person, sometimes we see more negatives, sometimes we just have an off day. Or we don't drive well with people and we can't figure out why, you know. Um V Falcon says, I felt dismissed, not respected. I didn't notice until I had spent time with people who did give me that respect. Yeah. Um, I remember, feeling that way too. Like, I had coworkers at a previous job who everybody would rag on each other and just say mean shit, and everybody was like, haha, I love that we're in this friend group where we could just say mean shit and nobody gets offended. And it's like, no, that's not real friendship. Like, if you rag on somebody for something that they are self-conscious about or not confident about themselves in, that's shitty, you know. Somebody, like one of the friends in that group, was like, hey, you'll never be an animator. And I remember feeling really hurt about that because I felt self conscious at the time that didn't have a job in my field and what I went to school for. Whereas, like, if, you say a word wrong and, like, I said debut instead of debut, and a person was joking with me about it, because it's like, okay, I'm not self conscious of the fact that I pronounced this word wrong, so we could laugh about it. That's a different type of joking with somebody that doesn't hurt anybody's feelings and doesn't push boundaries. And it's whenever you find yourself being around people who pick on things that aren't cool to rag on you about, that you're like, is this friend worth it? Um, you know, you don't have to impress somebody all the time, and they don't have to impress you all the time, but don't let people mistreat you. Like, if you see that pattern, then it's good to distance yourself from that person. Or if you can have a talk with that person about it, that's awesome. But if you talk with that person and you still see yourself not getting that respect, or them not respecting your boundaries, then they're not worth it. Like, what does this person mean to us? Um, so we've we've dove into, okay, how do we know we're being taken advantage of? We've dove into, why does this happen to us? And we're going to dive into now how to stop people pleasing. So we're going to dive into, like, how to prevent this from happening again. Louis the Claw says, I guess I was really lucky with my friends. I think I've had 3 problematic friendships in my whole life. Wow. Um, yeah, I find that very fortunate for you that you were able to only have 3 problematic friendships in your life, because um I've found that to be a repeated pattern in my life, and I don't know if it's just where I grew up, that there was more of toxicity there, or what, but yeah, I think it was definitely very prevalent in my life to have those situations. Um, Louis the Claw says, I did distance myself from those people, but I've had many more friends. I'm grateful. Um, you guys are people that I'm really grateful for and that I trust. I appreciate that you support this stream. I appreciate that you can come on here and be open. That you support each other in the chat, and um, you guys are there for me. I've cried on this stream and you guys have cheered me up. Like, you guys didn't have to do that. Uh, but you want to. I never, like, I have people that are like, I'm so sorry I didn't make it to the stream. And I'm just like, hey, it's okay if you didn't make it. It's okay if you were busy or you were too tired or you just couldn't, I'm like, you never have to apologize to me for not making it to the stream. Um, don't say sorry if you haven't done anything wrong. It's not a bad thing to set boundaries. And I feel a little bad to have to remind my friends that, because I don't want anybody to feel like they have to do something that they just can't. Um So I try to make a habit of reminding people like, hey, it's okay if you can't make it to a stream. If you come to it, I'm eternally grateful, definitely. But I don't think any less of you if you don't make it to a stream or if you don't watch it all. Like, that's your prerogative. Um uh Liberace says, yeah, you shouldn't have to fight for your friends' approval. Yeah, definitely. Um Louis the Claw says, I trust you too. I'm really glad to have friends who trust me, and I'm very grateful for that. And V Falcon sent me the official Shorty Pop heart, which is the Bi Pride heart. So heart right back to you. Um, yeah, I appreciate you guys a lot. And I try to make a habit of saying that, especially in the stream, like thanking you guys for coming and making that effort to verbalize my gratitude for that without beating a dead horse, because it does mean a lot to me. Um, because this stream has given me a lot of purpose and I've learned a lot from it, and I hope you guys have too. And if we look into how to stop people pleasing, the biggest thing, and Louis the Claw, I actually had a conversation with you about this earlier today. The biggest step in stopping people pleasing is validating yourself. Don't base your self-worth off of what other people think. Because I remember you're a really good friend, and you would go out of your way to encourage me and lift me up, because you're a genuine friend, but also there was a part of you that saw that I had less self-esteem in myself. But it's my responsibility to validate myself. When you put your worth in the hands of others, you lose who you are. How has relying on other people's approval affected your life? I'd love to hear from you guys how it's affected you. For me personally, I was at one point in a relationship where I changed who I was. I changed my beliefs. I changed my values. I changed my behaviors, the way I dressed, um, to mold myself to be the partner to this person that I wanted to be. And, you know, I relied so much on getting praise from this person, getting approval, getting compliments, being told, hey, you're good enough, you're good enough, you're good enough, that I lost the confidence in myself to be able to validate myself and believe it. Um, you know, if we reflect on ourselves with interest and curiosity and respect, you can ask yourself, like, and this isn't just a hypothetical, like, genuinely take a second to be like, what are some things that you genuinely love about yourself? Honestly, ask yourself that. What do you genuinely love about yourself? I love where I'm at in life and how I do my job, and I love the friends I've accumulated, and I'm really proud of myself how I've done that, and how I take care of my ferrets, and how I do this stream. Um, what are some ways that you can validate yourself? Nikki the Claw, my hair. Hey, there you go. Uh, you do have fabulous hair, even though you don't need me to validate you. But yeah, I think that's great that you're able to say that to yourself. Nikki the Claw, do you find yourself being somebody who finds it hard in general to validate yourself, or somebody who puts themselves down a lot? Nikki the Claw, that's about all I got. I guess that answers that question. Do you really think that about yourself? That that's the only attribute that you love about yourself is, I mean, when you base your self-worth off of something that, you're born with, like, okay, maybe somebody's attractive, maybe somebody has great hair, maybe somebody has a physique that they really like. It's like, I mean, I guess if you spend like hours and hours in the gym, it's one thing. But you know, what are some skills that you're proud of yourself? What are some things in your life that you value that you worked hard to get? Um, really think about that. I mean, genuinely, like I'm asking you guys, like what do you love about yourself? Be your hype man, dude. Be your own hype man. Um, if you separate what others think about you from what you think, you're able to validate your own needs instead of your need to please others. Um, you know, I when I was a comedian, I made crowds of strangers laugh and cheer, but I ruined comedy for myself by focusing on how it made me look to other people. Um, I needed everybody to think I was funny all the time. And instead of writing new jokes and having fun with it, I became bent on perfecting every joke and repeating the same joke over and over again and tweaking it just minorly because I wanted it to be perfect. Because I wanted to get a perfect video of the perfect performance. And then I'm like, oh, I hate doing comedy now because I'm just doing it for other people. And I didn't know how to do it for myself again. Um, Nikki the Claw says, I'm probably the funniest dude I know. Sorry, Louie. Hey, your puns are pretty freaking solid. I can't even think of a pun to go with what I just said. But you, see, I know I said I don't have to get validation. You guys need to get validation from yourselves, but I can definitely attest to, hey, you're funny. Or should I say punny? That was bad. No, nobody just ignore that. Um Louis the Claw says, I'm probably the funniest dude I know. Sorry, Nikki. Oh shit, we throwing some shade. Dad laughed. I respects it. Delete the VODs. Yeah, I'll go back before I post it and just beep over that part. Another way to keep yourself from people pleasing is don't be so harsh on yourself. Practice self respect and it'll become a habit. It's funny, mental health is strongly influenced on how much control you feel like you have over your life. I had a friend come to me and be like, oh, this coworker didn't respect me and it's stupid that I want that respect. And it's like, no, it makes sense that feeling like you don't have that control in your life feels defeating. And I told this friend, like, you came from a previous job where you were the boss, you were in charge, and now you miss that respect. And they were like, oh shit, I didn't think of it that way. Nikki the Claw says, also, I forgive you, Louie. Yay, friendship. Louis the Claw says, I am defeated by kindness. Seriously, though, I like my problem solving skills and my determination. I like being consistent and driven. I wanted to say reliable, but I changed it to consistent. Um, I think that's actually a really healthy way of phrasing it, is consistent and not just reliable, because it is okay to be like, you know what, actually, I know I said I could help you with this thing, but I can't. If generally, you're consistent with it, or if you need to change plans with somebody being like, yo, can we actually reschedule this? There's a consistency there where it's like you're not brushing this friend off or ignoring the value of their time, but you're asking for a compromise or whatever, and that's okay. I think self-soothing is a big part on this. I mean, we talked about that in the ADHD stream, ways to self-soothe. What sort of self-soothing techniques have you used to, avoid Hulk smashing yourself? And I'm curious, so far in this stream, how has what we talked about in this stream influenced your view on your need to people please? Do you feel like this is helping you so far? Do you feel like this is giving you perspective to step back and really think about how you value yourself and ways that you drain yourself in ways that aren't fair to you. What have you gotten out of this stream so far? We still have about an hour left. Let's see. Oh, I was like, oh shit, I've gotten way through too many of my notes, but I haven't. I have plenty left. Cool. But not just respecting yourself and loving yourself first, but being mindful of your body. You know, another way to avoid being a people pleaser in validating yourself is display confident body language. You know, we did a whole stream on body language, but it makes you feel confident too. Okay, I want you guys to take a moment to, if you're sitting at the computer and you're like this, just sit up straight and put your shoulders back and just release that tension and take a deep breath and just remind yourself, you know, you are strong, you're worthy of love, and feel how much more confident that you feel in just changing your posture. Do you notice a difference? Do you think if you keep doing this self-love, this self-validation, these self-soothing techniques, do you feel that that's going to make a difference for you? Another example of self-love is saying no. I know we talked about, you know, setting boundaries. You know, oftentimes, and I'm curious if you guys have dealt with this too, where you say no, but you're like, sorry, but I can't, and here's a whole explanation. You don't have to apologize for not being able to do something, and you don't have to explain yourself. You could just be like, oh, I actually can't do that, and that's enough. You know, you can make the decision to only keep healthy relationships, to make sure people don't take advantage of you. You know, if you paid for something and the waitress didn't bring it, you could just asking for it doesn't make you a Karen. If somebody isn't a good house guest, you know, like I went over to my mom's and I sat on her counter and she was like, counters are for glasses, not for asses. She communicated what she wanted in a lighthearted way that didn't make me feel bad for her telling me what she wanted and needed. There are ways to joke with people about like, hey, you're doing this thing, you know. Or there's ways to be more, there's times to be a little bit more serious in communicating what you want. Louis the Claw says, oh yeah, my therapist told me to practice setting boundaries without apologizing. I think that's great. Whenever we apologize, we're telling the other person, hey, I have a reason to apologize. I should be sorry. I did something wrong. And when that person keeps hearing you say sorry, sorry, sorry over and over again, that's gonna make them think, you know what? They should be sorry. And that's not healthy to put that expectation on yourself. That's not healthy to say, you know what, I should feel sorry because I didn't text this person back soon enough. I've had to get used to not saying sorry, I forgot to get back to you. It's just like, I'll say, you know what, thanks for being patient. I know it took me a while to get back to you, but, hey, what's up? You know? So, Louis, what are some strategies that you have used to stop over apologizing for things? Louis the Class says, we are telling ourselves too, I feel unnecessary guilt as soon as the words leave my lips. Yeah. As soon as you say you're sorry, you know, you're conditioned like, oh, I should feel sorry. You know, we don't apologize for things that we don't feel bad about. I mean, I should hope not. But you don't deserve to make yourself feel bad about something that you just don't need to feel bad about. You know, and saying no doesn't always mean you'll face a bad influence, you know, or incident. People are usually very accommodating. What situations do you find yourself having difficulty saying no to? Is it when you're put on the spot? Or maybe there's a particular friend or family member. Or maybe it's strangers asking for help. Um, I've known, you know, people in my life where, oh, I feel bad saying no to this person, or strangers asking for help. It's like, oh, but they're having a bad day. I know we talked about the strangers things a little bit, but uh as far as what situations do you find yourself saying no to, is it a specific situation? Is it a specific person? um I'd love to hear about it. And also, why is it this specific situation or this specific person? What about that situation or that person makes you feel like you need to please them, or you aren't allowed to say no to them? Um, because we need to remind ourselves saying no is okay. Or compromise. Maybe somebody invites you somewhere and you're tired for the day. You can suggest another day. Or, maybe if somebody says, hey, let's go out for dinner, it's like, I actually, I'm trying to save some money. Maybe we could just do a coffee date instead. Let's go get a cup of coffee because it's a couple bucks versus a dinner that might be $20. That's okay. Your friend's not going to be like, oh, you're a piece of shit because you won't go out to Arby's, or I guess Arby's isn't an expensive place to go, but whatever. And if they are, then they're not a true friend. Um, I know that there was a time where I was like, hey, this topic makes me uncomfortable for these reasons and it's hurting my mental health. Can we not talk about this anymore? And that person was like, you need to make an exception for me because of these reasons. People who expect you to make an exception for them aren't your real friend. And that's just a fact. Louis the Claw says, we're telling ourselves to. Oh, wait. I think priming myself in advance for a conversation with the intention of setting a boundary helps me stay calm and communicate well and avoid apologizing. So, you said about preparing yourself in advance for a conversation. How would that work if somebody called you up and on the spot was like, hey, Louis the Claw, can you help me with this? Would it be harder for you to say no if you didn't have time to think about it? Um, let's see. Uh, ba, 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 ba. Louis the Claw says it would be harder, yes. I'm going to keep that in mind if I decide to reach out to you for something, because sometimes I'll call people just because it's easier. A lot of times I'm driving, or it's easier to have a conversation about something instead of like texting it. But I want to keep that in mind when it comes to asking you for things, because I respect that boundary. So from now on, if there's a favor or something I am going to reach out to you about, I'll be sure to not make it a phone call and to instead message you so that you have time to respond, because that's not fair of that wouldn't be fair of me knowing that, to be like, okay, I'm just gonna call him and be like, I need this response immediately. And I've actually found myself doing that sometimes, where it's like, oh, I want this answer right away just so I know, so I'll call this person. But I never took the time to think, oh, maybe I'm putting this person on the spot, until you said that just now. Um, oh, Louis the Claw says, sometimes I'll do the right thing and say I'll get back to you. I think that's good that you make an effort to do that. Um, and like I said, if somebody doesn't respect you saying that you'll get back to them, then the answer should be no. Liberace says, yeah, spur of the moment stuff can be hard sometimes. Louis the Claw says, but not every time. As far as saying, I'll get back to you. If I'm sure it's a comfortable ask, like not encroaching on my boundary, I try to answer without hesitation. If I hesitate, I welcome it to be questioned. Uh, can you tell me what you mean about if I hesitate, I welcome it to be questioned. Do you mean if you pause on answering somebody that you fear they're going to be like, well, why'd you think about it? Why'd you think about it? Louis the Claw says, then there are times I stop to think and work out whether it's feasible on the phone. There's a subtly different style of hesitation. If you hear, I remember I used to get upset if I would ask Jacob a question like, "Hey, do you like this?" And or what do you think of this? And he'd be like, and it's like, and I'd be like, "What? You don't like it because you took 2 seconds to think about it?" Like, and I've learned that that's sort of a silly expectation to I would rather now somebody take a minute to think about it than just answer automatically, because if you automatically answer something, you're not always being true to yourself. You're not always saying what you feel. You're just you're just doing the reflex. Um Versus yes, sure. Nikki the Claw says pretend you have a bad connection and can't hear them. Um Honestly, Louis, and this is just, I could be wrong, but this is just my interpretation of it. Um if there is somebody in your life who makes you feel like you have to give them an instant response in times where you have hesitated, like are these people that in times where you have hesitated they've grilled you about it, and how did they approach that, like grilling, were they like, hey, you seemed hesitant about it, are you sure, and saying it out of a place of concern, or were they like, are you sure, what was that hesitation, like what kind of response do you find yourself facing more often, a question out of concern for you, or a question out of concern for them when they, quote unquote, question you about it? Nikki the Claw, I do like your response. Pretend you have a bad connection. Well, outside of family, nobody grills me. More honest clarifications out of concern for me. Okay. See, I think that just shows that you have good friends in your life who care about you. And with those friends, I should hope that you don't feel that impulse to give them an immediate answer. And that if they do ask if you're sure, that isn't a reason to feel bad. I mean, we're talking about like over apologizing for things. It's not a reason to feel bad if you have to think about it for a second. Just like if somebody said, "What's your favorite color?" and you were like, green. Does that mean you have to apologize because you had to think of your favorite color? No. So you shouldn't have to apologize if you have to think if you can do something for somebody or not, or if you want to do something for somebody. It doesn't always have to be if you can or can't. It's also, do you want to or not want to? That's part of the equation too. Louis the Claw says, yes, for sure. Actually, that reminds me what you said about family grilling you. Part of that is, I remember you saying that a family member would demand that you answer their phone calls all the time, or call them every day. And I actually had a conversation with Liberace earlier today about like, hey, do you ever answer the phone because you feel obligated to answer it even if you're, not able to talk? And I remembered I was like afraid to say that because I thought, oh, like what if I like offend them, or what if they get upset? And you were just like, nope, if I can't talk, I'll tell you. And that like brought me a lot of comfort, and I was glad that I like had that conversation with you, because like I never want to make my friends feel that pressure, and I want them to know that it's okay if you don't respond right away, or forget to get back to me, or don't pick up a phone call sometimes, or whatever. I actually got a letter or a card in the mail from a friend who was like, hey, I'm sorry I don't always answer the phone when you call, but I appreciate that you still call, and it means a lot to me. And it felt good to hear that they appreciated me calling, even if they didn't pick up. And it's okay if they don't pick up, but knowing that they appreciate me reaching out felt good. And I think it's good to tell friends, like, hey, I appreciate you reaching out, even if I don't know. Like, I think that's healthy to acknowledge ways that you appreciate your friends without feeling like you have to give them your all the time. Louis the Claw says, I used to be very bad at answering the phone because if I hear the phone ring, there's a negative association. It's funny because, well, I guess I shouldn't say it's funny. I guess that my brain is just loading a response. But yeah, no, that's a shame that you've been made to feel that way. Like you, sort of, are almost trained at this point to, it's like a Pavlovian response where it's like the phone rings and you're like, oh shit, and it's like, oh no, it's cool. I could ignore this, or I could respond and it's just somebody saying, hey, what's up, and checking in on me. Louis the Class says, I spent a lot of effort to get better at phone calls, but also if I answer consistently, it means the caller is somebody I consistently like talking to. Well, I appreciate that. I know I was calling today and I was like, oh, I wonder if he picks up. And in my head, I was like, he'll pick up because it's me. But then also, I guess that was sort of a selfish, now that I'm thinking about it, it was selfish to assume that, because it's like, no, you're not obligated to pick up all the time. But you are consistent, and I appreciate that you make the time to talk to me. And it means a lot. So I think it's great that you're at a point now where you're able to get more comfortable with that. Have you guys noticed over time you getting more comfortable setting these boundaries? Liberace, I know that's something like you've really struggled with a lot, is setting boundaries. What ways have you found yourself more comfortable setting boundaries? Like, what instances have you been like, you know what, I'm better at saying no to this, or this person, or not dealing with this? Like, what ways have you noticed that you feel more capable in setting these boundaries? And that goes with all of you guys. Like, what ways have you noticed that you are more easily able to set boundaries with people? And you know what? Actually, on Louis's point, what you had said about feeling like you can't hesitate to agree to something. What do you do if you unintentionally agree to something because you were put on the spot or whatever? It's okay to say, hey, I misunderstood this, or hey, I didn't think enough about it. I didn't think this through before I agreed to it. A friend of mine is launching this app that is sort of Pokemon Go-esque, where you have to move around and run in real life to use the app. And a friend of mine was like, oh, I have this running app, will you help me beta test it? And I thought, oh, I just have to run by pressing B, all right. And then I found out it's like, oh no, you have to go around your neighborhood and you have to exercise. And I was like, no, I didn't know what I was agreeing to. And also my neighborhood is terrifying, so I don't want to go around to the neighborhood. And I was able to tell that friend, like, hey, I misunderstood this and I want to help you, but here's my situation and here was my original understanding of it. And that's okay. Louis the Claw says, thanks. Liberace says, planning ahead helps. Recently, I was making future plans with someone, and on my way home, I was glad that they were future plans, because otherwise I would have jumped and said I'd give everyone a ride to the thing again. So when you say that they were future plans and you didn't have to jump to say, like, okay, I'll give you all a ride again, like, was that not a stage of the planning process that you reached yet? Or just in general, you have time to decide, like, okay, how is everyone going to get there? I just want to make excuse me. I just want to make sure like I understand. But in general, I think that that's great that you have found a solution to be able to set those boundaries and be more comfortable with that. Like I'm really proud of you because I know that's something that you've struggled with. I know we've struggled with not like all of us, you know. I know we've struggled with feeling underappreciated or feeling like we need to buy somebody's love, or go out of our way and break our own boundaries. You know, I remember there was one time that I fucking drove through a flash flood because I called somebody up and I said, "Hey, you know, I actually can't go to Sheets and buy this thing for you and go to your party." And I called up and I said, "Hey, I'm on my way to Sheets right now and there's a flash flood and it's really dangerous for me to drive." So, and they were like, "So you're going to be late to bringing me that thing?" And I remember just being like, "Yeah." Instead of just being like, "Nah, you know what? I can't come." And that was a friend that would steal from me too. A friend that would push my boundaries. It wasn't a real friend at all. And I kind of regret even going to I do regret even going to that. Like I put myself in danger for another person who was expecting something of me that shouldn't have even been expected. And it was on the phone too. So Louis the Claw, what you're saying is so fucking true, where it's like when you're put on the spot, it's hard to say no to somebody. So maybe that's something that I could do in the future. Even though I have friends now that don't take advantage of me, I could also practice not only asking for things through text so people have an opportunity to figure out if they can, but also telling somebody through text, like, "Hey, here's my full thought process of why I can't do this," rather than putting myself in a situation where the person might assume I'll still do it and then feeling obligated to do that. So that kind of helps me out. Um, Oh, I missed some of your messages. Liberace says, yeah, definitely. Thinking about what I'll get myself into ahead of time. Yeah, we have not reached that stage of the plans yet. Okay. So on my way home, I was thinking of, okay, when it comes time to make plans for rides, don't jump to pick everybody up. Um, yeah, I remember you having said that, uh, you know, you would give rides to coworkers because you would feel hurt personally if people didn't help you. And I think it's really great that you are at a point now where you can comfortably uh, wait to jump on the opportunity to do something for somebody so that you can evaluate your boundaries and what you're willing to do and give people the opportunity to extend themselves to you because fuck, you deserve it, dude. Um Liberace says, "Wow, no, regards for your safety. I'm glad you got them out of your life." Yeah, actually after that party, something had happened where I was like, "Wow, this person really pushed my boundaries in a fucked up way." Um and so I stopped even talking to them. Um it was hard cuz it was somebody I worked with at the time. This was years ago. Um but uh but yeah, thank you for saying that. Um Louis the Claw says, "Oh no, that kind of pressure is tough to deal with. I try to combat my own over explaining by starting the conversation with, or by starting with my conclusion. Hi, I can't make it tonight because Sheets is underwater and my car isn't amphibious, etc." That is actually a really good idea, and I love that. I'm gonna try to do that going forward. Is just saying, just stating my stance beforehand. Um, because it's not necessarily bad to like say here's why, but it is important to get home that point of like I can't and here's why, so that that person, you know, hopefully people have a good enough interest in you where they don't take advantage of uh you articulating that. But I think that's a really great idea. um Louis the Claw says, "I don't do it every time, but it helps have a firm stance going into it." I think that's really great advice. I learned something from you guys today. Um, yeah. Um, do you guys have any similar experiences where you agreed to something, but maybe the circumstances changed and you didn't know how to say you didn't want to. I have some friends who were invited to go to a wedding, and the couple was like, "Yo, we'll pay for your hotel room, we'll pay for this. All you have to do is show up." And my friends were like, "Yeah, we can do that." And then there were more and more people coming to the wedding, more and more people coming on this trip, and then they were like, "Yo, we actually can't afford to pay for any of your trip, but you're still coming, right?" And my friend was like, "Oh shit, so now I got to go to this thing and I got to spend all this money and it's going to be awkward." And I was like, "Look, you don't have to do this." And they were like, "But I'm going to make my friend sad." And I was like, dude, your feelings are more important. Like, if they're a real friend, they'll understand. And I think it was still hard for him to come to terms with that because it seems like he's still going to go through with it. But at the end of the day, you can't make decisions for people. But just being able to be there and be like, hey, just so you know, you can say no. Um, you know, I'm glad I was at least able to do that. Nikki the Claw, does having a job count? I mean, Nikki the Claw says, I regret it every day. Um, if you're, uh, that's an interesting question. Um, I think if you're proud of the fact that you are able to support yourself and that you're a hard worker and you make it to work every day, those are things you can be proud of. Definitely. Uh, but it's a shame that you put yourself in a situation every day that extends your boundaries, even if you are proud of yourself for sticking to it. It's still not fair to you to push yourself to do things that you regret. And you don't deserve to be in that environment. I know not everybody has the privilege of deciding like what job they have depending on like location or experience or availability. But you deserve to be happy. And if there are ways that you can get into something that is more fulfilling for you, you deserve that. Louis the Claw says, talk to me about work-life boundaries. Yeah, whenever you said you have to stay up until like 3 a.m. sometimes, like for a job that you have to get up at, 8 or 9 or 10 a.m., I just thought, fuck, like that's unfair expectations put on you. Um, Asking yourself like what should I say yes or no to, evaluate your long-term and your short-term goals towards what you want. um there's a way to kindly set boundaries. um you know you don't always have to be nice all the time. um if people ask you for things that you're uncomfortable with or that go against your values, if they get mad at you for saying no or they gaslight you, you can try talking to them, but if that doesn't work, cut those people out. Like that friend I mentioned that didn't respect my boundaries, I cut her out. It was hard because I convinced myself, well, this person really likes me and I'm their friend. It's like, no, they don't treat me like a friend and I don't have to put up with this shit. Um, you know, what are some times you weren't sure if somebody was pushing your boundaries or if you just weren't nice enough? Like, where you questioned that, like, okay, is this person pushing me too far, or am I being a jerk? Like, what ways have you questioned that balance for yourself? Like I said, if they're toxic, cut them out. Um, when people take advantage of you, don't feel bad about yourself. Just don't put yourself in those situations in the future. And I know it's easier said than done, but you know, like we said, you don't have to make yourself available to people all the time. You don't have to be on call to everybody all the time. Um, you know, how can we go about setting these boundaries with another person and expressing ourselves? Um, we will dive into that in a second here. Oh shit, I'm so sorry. Chad, I forgot to say hi. Um, Hi Chad, thanks so much for coming today. I appreciate you joining, and I almost said I'm sorry, but I'm trying to refrain from apologizing for things and just say, you know what, I'm grateful. I'm grateful that you're here, and thank you for being patient if it takes me a minute to respond to the chat. See, there we go, putting it into practice. um, Chad Silch says, hi, Nikki the Claw. Ah, I'm glad you guys are chatting. Um, yeah, you know, whenever we get frustrated with somebody, it's good to say, you know, I like, instead of saying, oh, I hate this person, focus on the behavior that you don't like. And is it something you can talk out with them? Um, you know, uh, address the issue that you have with them. You don't want to just like, if you're upset with somebody for pushing your boundaries, obviously you don't want to like name call because that damages the respect you've built up. But instead we can confront the issue at hand and be confident in ourselves because that takes courage. That doesn't mean you have to blurt out every mean thing you think, but just being open and honest about your boundaries or how you feel about a situation. Um, Thank you for being patient that I'm late to the stream 50% of the time. Haha. Actually, Chad Zilch, it's funny that you say that. Actually, earlier in the stream, I was just telling people like you never have to feel bad if you can't make it to the stream or if you're late to the stream. Like I'm just grateful that you show up. I mean, I appreciate you saying that, but like you're not obligated to be here at the stream. Like also you work and you didn't get off of your shift until whatever time. But even if you were too tired when you got home and didn't show up to the stream, that's okay. I'm never going to be upset with you about that, and I'm really grateful for the fact that you show up to my streams. It means a lot. Um I think uh reminding ourselves to speak up and not be afraid of confrontation is really hard. And I'm curious, like, do you guys relate to that fear of telling somebody, you know what, I'm actually not comfortable with that? um a way that we can do this the right way is acknowledging that you don't like conflict, especially with somebody you're close to. Like, I've been doing this lately where I say, you know what, this is hard for me to say because I love you as a friend, but this is just a reality. It sucks, right? Like it sucks for me to say it, but I love you as a human being. Or look, this is something I've been wanting to tell you for a while, but I've been uncomfortable and haven't wanted to say it. Um, those are all completely fine things to say, and it's healthy to communicate to somebody, you know what, I was worried to say this. Um, I remember I was frustrated with a friend who was saying, I was scared to tell you this because I thought, how dare they be scared to tell me? What are they trying to say? And then I was like, Danny, shut the fuck up. You're being entitled. Like, they're taking courage to come to you and tell you honestly that they were worried to tell you about this. You don't have to be frustrated at the fact that they were worried. That's not a reflection on you. That's not a reflection on anything but just how they felt, and the fact that they're able to be open and honest with you about this now is a reflection of the relationship that you guys have, that they're able to come to you even if they were scared. And I have to remind myself of that. um but I don't take it out on that person when I'm going through that thought process. It's just internal, and then I'm like, oh yeah, Danny, chill the fuck out. Louis the Claw says, one of 3 friendships I got away from was in college. I had a friend that wanted to be in my team to help, and he definitely worked hard, so I wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt, but he was also very dependent, and after we graduated, the pattern continued. He really wanted to pull me into risky startup software companies, and he wouldn't take no for an answer, so I eventually stopped answering any of his communication. I think that's awesome that you were able to be like, you know what, this person isn't taking no for an answer, and I don't have to put up with that. Because that's something that a lot of people never get the opportunity to get to. That's a part that people don't reach because they're afraid of that rejection, or they have this people pleasing tendency that they just can't fight off. So the fact that you were like, you know what, this person actually isn't good for me, that fucking shows a lot of strength, to be able to be like, you know what, I'm walking away from this. Louis the Claw says, it was tough. It didn't feel good, but it was necessary, and it got better eventually. I remember actually in a previous stream, whenever we talked about cults, that you said it was hard for you to step away from this cult because of how welcoming that they were to you. And I am so glad that you were able to step out of that situation. And I'm sure friendships like the one that you had just described helped you get to a point that you were able to get out of future bad situations. Unless those happened in reverse order, in which case, just in general, I'm really glad that you were able to get to a point where you could set those boundaries. Louis the Claw says, thanks, Shorty Pop. Oh yeah, that was a whole bunch of people I ghosted. I remember seeing, like, somebody sent me a TikTok with, like, advice, and one of them was like, don't ever ghost anybody ever. It is the shittiest thing you can do. And I thought, fuck that TikTok. Fuck that TikTok so hard. I hate it. Because who the fuck is entitled to you not ghosting them? You don't owe anybody a fucking explanation of why you're not going to talk to them anymore. There's people where it's like, you know what, I'm just gonna block them on everything. This person isn't good to me. I don't owe them a fucking explanation. I don't owe them a friend breakup. I don't owe them any of that because this person has proven time and time again that they're just not good for me. And it's just not worth it to put yourself through more shit to distance yourself from a person. Louis the Claw says, and some of them I'm sure are genuinely nice, but they were all woven together in that bad situation. That came later, actually. Okay. And do you think that because of that previous situation you had, or what part came later, the cult or the business opportunity, quote unquote, friend? Liberace says, yeah, some people don't deserve a response. Yeah, I remember us having that conversation whenever you had that friend that was really mistreating you, and she sent you that shitty message, and you were like, what should I do? And I was just like, don't respond. And I remember you saying that you had people in your life who would have pressured you to respond and say, oh, fuck you, fuck this, blah, blah, blah. And how relieved you were at the fact that you didn't have to give that person a response. And I'm really proud of you because you just as easily could have just been like, no, I'm going to do it anyway. There are plenty of times where somebody was like, Danny, don't do this thing. That person doesn't deserve it. And I'd be like, I'm going to do it anyway. So you still had autonomy in that situation. You could have easily just been like, no, I'm doing it anyway. And you didn't. You made that decision for yourself. And that was... I'm really glad that you were able to do that. I'm like reading ahead in some of your guys' messages. Louis the Claw says, the college entrepreneur friend was first, so it was like practice. Well, I'm glad, and I think that is even harder, honestly, to say no to a friend sometimes than strangers, even though it was a lot of strangers all at once and they were treating you like you were their family. It sucks when we have those experiences with people that we have trouble saying no to. You know, looking back at those experiences where it's like, oh, I got bamboozled or I got taken advantage of. It's like, well, that made me the person I am today that's able to stand up for myself. You know, I've become a person that gets taken advantage of less because I don't give people the opportunity to who aren't worth it. Liberace says, it felt so good to just delete the message and block her. I'm really glad. That person wasn't good to you. And I think deleting that message was actually a really good idea too, because I think we have this tendency to envelop ourselves in this anger. You know, I've found myself rereading arguments I had with somebody just to get more and more pissed off, and it never did me any good. It just made me more miserable. So the fact that you were able to delete that just so you wouldn't go back to it, I'm glad that you did that for yourself. Nikki the Claw says, sometimes you gotta ghost people. It helped me with my family. And then a little Santa emoji. I think that's especially hard to do with family because we're constantly told like, "Oh, family's family, you always stick together." But that's not always the case. Not everybody has the privilege of having a family that is worth keeping around. And it's hard to determine that sometimes, but the fact that you were able to be like, "You know what? This is what works best for me in my situation." I think it's great that you were able to do that. And even if other people ever make you feel guilty about that situation, fuck them. Because you know what's best for you. Other people don't know what's best for you. You fucking do. All right? Um, uh, People who are worth keeping around will understand if you approach something with tact. Even people who care about you can get defensive if they themselves are hurting, or if maybe you go about it the wrong way or say the wrong thing and end up hurting them. But, uh, you know, being able to establish those boundaries is still important, and being able to communicate. Uh, and if you have friends that have good faith in you, even if you maybe say something the wrong way, they won't assume it's in bad intent. Um, 100%. Fuck yeah, Nikki. Fuck yeah. Um, so we've talked about how to recognize ways that we're people pleasing. Um, what about the steps that we can take going forward to stop people pleasing? Um, Biggest thing, we already mentioned it before, stop apologizing for small things or things that aren't your fault. You don't have to apologize for, oh, sorry I don't look pulled together, sorry my hair is a mess. I felt fucking embarrassed to go to the store today because I walked out of my apartment with pajama pants on, and I was like, "Oh, I should go put real pants on." And then I was like, "Fuck it." And I went to the store anyway, and somebody was like, "Yo, I like your Jack Skellington pajama pants. Those are fucking cool." And it's like, you know what? You're goddamn right. All right. I don't have to feel bad for not looking put together. You don't have to apologize for making accidental physical contact. Like if you bump someone, if you bump somebody with your elbow, you can just say, "Oh, excuse me," or "Pardon me." You don't have to be like, "I'm sorry, I accidentally bumped my elbow." Like that's okay. Um, or to make a joke about it and be like, "Whoops, I didn't mean to attack you with my elbow." um, Pajama pants are the official dress code of CVS or the liquor store. um, Nikki the Claw says, "Nah, jammy jams are the only way to leave the house. I'm not on this planet to look pretty for anyone. Hells yeah. Fuck yeah. You know what? If you want to go around in your Jack Skellington pajama pants, you're comfortable. That's what fucking matters. I've learned that I don't have to, I could just wear a baggy hoodie and some leggings and be like, you know what? I'm comfortable in this. I don't have to dress in a frilly top and dress and be all cute and do my makeup every day to be comfortable with myself. Nikki the Claw says, "I wish I had pajama pants that cool." Well, you know what? I got them at a thrift store for a quarter. So even you can be the owner of some cool pajama pants for the simple price of a quarter and a trip to a Goodwill. um, yes. Yes. You know what? Actually, I have little penguin pajama pants on right now. I made a costume change. And they have little scarves on them. I got these for a quarter too. So, yeah, man, thrift stores, they're the fucking future. I got this at a thrift store too. So, I got that horse thing at a thrift store. Also, I hope you guys enjoy the extra stuffed animals I have added to this. Uh I've extra cuted up the place. Um Nikki the Claw says, "Oh, those are rad." Well, thank you. Um, Another thing that you don't have to apologize for is being passionate about something. And I think this is something that so many, like, of you people of you guys struggle with. Like, just in general, people struggle with this a lot. Somebody will nerd out about something and be like, yo, I love this thing. Oh, you know what, I'm sorry for talking about it. You don't have to feel bad about being passionate about something. Do you guys find yourself doing that? Remember, if you feel like you went overboard talking about something, you can always make a joke about yourself and be part of the joke instead of putting yourself down and acting like you did something that was worth an apology. Uh, you know, um, or if somebody tries to push my boundaries, like if I show up and Uber customers are like, hey, can you take 4 people? I say, I can take 3. And then they'll often try to push that boundary and be like, well, what if well, is it okay if we take 4 actually? Can we just do it? Can you just let us? I'll just keep repeating myself. I'll say, I can take 3. And they'll say, well, what if we tip you? I say, I could take 3. And by repeating the same response instead of altering it and trying to act like it's a conversation, if I show them this isn't a conversation, this is my answer and it's final, by repeating that and driving it home, they stop trying to argue with me. They stop trying to negotiate. They just say, you know what? All right, we'll take this Uber. You call another one later, Jeff, and we'll meet you there. So if people try to push you, you can just keep repeating yourself and be like, I can't. I can't. Nope, I can't. You can just keep saying that, because whenever you give excuses sometimes people will jump on that opportunity and be like, maybe I can negotiate, maybe I can get them into this. You just shut it down. Liberace says, yeah, an animation club, we'll get really into talking about shows and movies, and I'll usually pipe in with, I'm a slut for Shorty Pop. I love that phrase, I'm a slut for blank. That was my favorite. But I'm glad you're able to be passionate about these things and not feel bad about it. Louis the Claw says, I have apologized for being passionate about a subject before. Well, maybe not exactly apologize, but I'll catch myself to sheepishly say that I have a lot of thoughts on the subject, usually gaming lore. I think that's a shame that people apologize for something that they're passionate about, and I think that stems from, like, I'm curious where that stems from for you, Louis. Like, do you notice, has there been a time where somebody has made you feel bad about being passionate about that before? I read a Tumblr post once that was like, I feel so bad when somebody comes at me with so much enthusiasm for something and then apologizes, because it means somebody else looked that person in the eyes and said, I don't care. And now that person internalized it forever, where they feel like they shouldn't be excited or that people don't care about what they're talking about. Is that your experience? Liberace says, right, because when people ask why, I'll go down a huge list of reasons why that role is the role, and it just doesn't matter. They don't care, so just being blunt and saying no is good. Fuck yeah. Fuck people who say why. I mean, not, you know what I mean. Like, when people say why, sometimes they're just pushing past their boundaries and pushing past what your comfort level is, and they're not really interested in the reason why. They're not. They're interested in getting you to agree with them. Like, I remember I had a conversation with a friend who, a coworker came to them and said, hey, is it okay if I take my break at 4? And my friend was like, you could take it at 4:30. And they were like, well, breaks are taken at 4. And my friend was so pissed off because it's like, it's not, they came at it asking like it was an option. And as soon as they were told no, they were like, well, this should be the way it is. And that's not fair. You shouldn't have to explain yourself to people. Because that's sometimes just a way of them pushing your boundaries. So I think it's good to recognize that. Louis the Claw says, yes, often I've had to learn about knowing my audience. I've put many individuals to sleep. I think, I mean, we talked a little bit in a previous stream about sort of testing the waters or giving people the opportunity to give their feedback, like, If you're really excited about, I don't know a whole lot about gaming, so I'm gonna pick like a movie. If you're really excited about the new Spider-Man movie, instead of being like, here is the lore of all the Spider-Man things, and I love this and that, it's like, yo, I saw the new trailer for the Spider-Man movie. Have you seen it? Or have you seen the Amazing Spider-Man, the animation in this? I thought it was pretty cool. What did you think? Like, giving people an opportunity to get in on the conversation or gauge their interest is a good thing to do. And it's a way to keep them engaged without feeling like you're, quote unquote, boring them, or like you aren't worthy of talking about it. What do you think of that? Liberace says, when people have a huge passion for something that you don't know about, you could always learn cool facts about random stuff that you'd never learn otherwise. Yes, let people be a part of the conversation. Yeah. Um, and because there's ways that you can go about it where you don't have to feel bad. And I love that perspective, Liberace, that like, hey, if you don't know a lot about it, you can learn cool shit. Um, yeah. Um, I want you guys to take notice if you do that in the future, where if you apologize for getting excited about something, or if you apologize before a text that you forgot to reply to right away, be mindful of that. Let's see. I'm gonna check something in my notes real quick. Um, And while I do that, I'm really curious to hear what you guys are thinking of this stream so far. I think sometimes I get hung up in looking at the views, and if I feel that they're dropping, I'll internalize that and be like, oh no, people aren't interested in what I'm saying. Um, and that's more on me, but it always helps to get a perspective from you guys in uh, how the stream is being received, and if you guys enjoy it or are learning a lot from it. I'm gonna try to do the thing where I don't go too deep into things, because I've been going like an hour over in my notes a lot. Um, let's see. Yeah, testing the waters is Louis the Claw says, yeah, testing the waters is kind of what I've learned, and sometimes I just ramble to friends who are exceptional at listening, even if they don't share the same excitement. Um, it's good that you've gotten to a point where you can test the waters so that you don't feel that pressure to be the most interesting man in the world, and that you have recognized friends who, are willing to listen and give you that attention in the things that you care about. I remember I tried talking to my dad about D&D, and he was like, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't understand any of this. And it's like, okay, I get that. I went too deep into the lore. I started talking about how I'm a 10 level druid and you don't know what any of that shit means. And maybe if I approach this again, I'll either explain it in a way that you could relate to, or maybe if you're not interested in this, I could just talk about it to my other friends that are sluts for D&D. Um, uh, let's see. Liberace says it's going great. I think that this is a topic that everybody can relate to. Well, thanks, Liberace. I appreciate you saying that. Louis the Claw says, this stream has been great. I came into it quite weary, and I found it rejuvenating and cathartic to share tips and hear other people's experiences. I feel a lot better than I did coming in. When you say you felt weary coming into it, what about it made you feel that, anxiety, that worry? Like what did you think it was going to be like? You know what I mean? Nikki the Claw says, it's your channel, you should do what you like. If we didn't want to be here, we wouldn't. Having thumbs is difficult. Well, thank you. That's really reassuring that, you guys are here because you want to be. I'm really grateful for that. Louis the Claw says, D&D stories can be really fun. It's such a free-form, experience-driven game. then I have a fun story to share about you about the time that I got a pet dragon in D&D by pure luck, because that is a fun story. But not something that everyone can appreciate, and that's okay. I need to learn D&D one of these days. It is quite fun, but it involves a lot of feature planning, and I'm the kind of person that is like, I'm gonna do this thing, and then I upset all the village people, and we are run out of the town and banished forever and going to get killed. So that is something I have to be better at with playing D&D, because I get too excited and I don't plan ahead. um, Louis the Claw says, I knew this subject would be relevant to me, and with work and lack of sleep, I felt I could be sensitive. But it was really great. I don't mean this to pry, but whenever you said that you were worried that you could be sensitive about the topic, would you mind explaining a little bit further about what you thought that this was going to be? Like, did you think that... I don't want to make any assumptions, but I just want to understand better what you mean by that. Louis the Claw says, but it was really great. Chad Zilch says, I'm enjoying the stream also. Nikki the Claw says, planning. Ooh. First of all, thank you, Louis the Claw and Chad Zilch. I keep burping into the mic and trying not to. Thank you guys so much for saying that you enjoy the stream. It means a lot to me, and I know that you guys aren't just saying that. Like, I really appreciate it. Louis the Claw says, ha ha ha, it's a little bit painful to stir stuff up around people pleasing, like pulling off a band-aid. Yeah, that makes sense. Were you in that way concerned that you would be, judged or chastised for having been a people pleaser? Because I know from knowing you that, let's see, Louis the Claw says not at all. Except for myself, me judging me. Oh, okay. Well, Louis the Claw says I have to face it when I'm talking about it. I'm glad that even though you were worried that this stream was going to make you feel some type of way about it, that you stuck around and that you found it helpful. And you don't deserve to put that judgment on yourself. We all have been in that people-pleasing mindset. We all want to be loved. We all want to be liked. We all want to get that approval. And sometimes we hurt ourselves to get it. And that doesn't make you any less of a person. That doesn't make you... that doesn't make you a pushover. It doesn't make you weak. It means you grew past it. And even if you still have these tendencies now, we're all just people trying to navigate life, and it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to have trouble saying no sometimes, as long as you show yourself that love and you work on it. Because at the end of the day, this is about self-love. That's the biggest part about not people-pleasing, is finding a way to love yourself, because then you don't have to worry so much about pleasing other people, because you could please yourself. Louis the Claw says, thanks so much, Shorty Pop. Anytime. That's what we're here for. Let's see. I'm gonna sort of skim through some of these last notes. If somebody is antagonizing you or coming at you, remember, talk at your normal tone. Stop and listen to what they say until they calm down. Sometimes that's something you have to do. I remember, staying kind is also a huge thing in setting boundaries, because I had this one guy during the height of the pandemic. I had a customer go to get into my car, and I said, "Oh, could you put a mask on before you get in?" And the guy was like, "Oh yeah, I'm so sorry." And he stepped out politely to get his mask, and his friend leaned into the car and just went, and this is before anybody was vaccinated. I was fucking terrified of getting COVID. And I think a lot of people's knee jerk reaction would be like, "Fuck you, I'm not taking you. You could eat a dick. Get out of my fucking car." But all I said was, "Please don't do that." And the guy was like, "Aw, you know what? You were being nice. I'm sorry." And he actually took the initiative to apologize, because in setting that boundary, I chose to be nice in that, because when you get aggressive people, being nice helps. Fuck, I had one time where I had this woman get in my car, and I said, "Hey, let me know when you got your seatbelt on and we'll be ready to roll." And she was like, she got so fucking angry at me, and she goes, "Really? I have to put my seatbelt on?" And I just went, "Yeah, because I care about you." And I just saw that anger melt from her, and she just went, "Wow, that was so nice." And she's like, "That really made my day." She's like, "You know what? I will put it on. If anybody else asked me, I wouldn't. But because you asked me and you're so sweet, I will." And sometimes, when setting boundaries, showing a little kindness can go a long way. Even if sometimes people aren't worth it, sometimes it is worth it to just show a little kindness, and people are like, "You know what? You're right, man. I'll do the thing." Let me see. I'm just scrolling through my notes because I feel bad to go overboard at certain things. Okay, I guess I'm just about done. I guess one other point I want to make. Nikki the Class says, "I hate to bounce early, but I need to go get a shower and go Betty Buys for Dummel work. It's been a great stream though. Nighty night, y'all. Well, I'm really glad that you could come, and yeah, thanks for showing up and being a part of the conversation. And I'm glad that you were able to step out too and set that boundary for yourself. So have a great night. And as we wrap up, the one last thing that I want to say is whenever you confront somebody about something, you know, it is okay to state something as your opinion, because they can't deny how you feel about it or where you choose to stand on it. But it's okay to say, "You know what? I could be wrong about this, but this is how I'm interpreting it." And then giving somebody that freedom to be like, "Oh, you know what? This is actually how I meant it," or that good faith with friends who've earned it. But anyway, yeah. So we going forward, what I hope that we can put into practice is stop hurting yourself for others to get people to like you. Love and validate yourself, set boundaries, say no, and stop apologizing when you didn't do anything wrong or over little things. So yeah, what did you find most helpful about today's stream? Today, learning that for me personally, learning that my desire to put other people before myself stems from a need to be liked is the most valuable thing that I've learned in researching this stream. And while I wait to hear from you guys, I just want to say thank you again so much for being supportive of the stream and taking part of the conversation today. I really appreciate you guys. Chad Zild says, "Thank you for streaming. We appreciate all that you do." And then the official Shorty Pop heart and the emoji of my dad, which I will always appreciate to see in chat. Thanks, Chad. I really appreciate you saying that. Well, I think I'm going to wrap up. I don't think that I have any stinky babies to help me sign off. But Liberace says, "Great stream. Have a good night, everybody." And also the emoji of my dad. Thank you so much for putting that in. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, guys. I really appreciate it. I hope that you guys learned a lot and that going forward, you can show yourself the love that you deserve and setting boundaries and knowing who's who respects your boundaries in your life and who isn't respecting your boundaries and who you need to distance yourself from. Louis the Claw says good night, everyone. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I love you guys very much, and have a great night. Toodles.